Welcome, rising sophomores, to Mr. Gardner's U.S. History class. This class shall cover all the way from the colonizers in the late 1500s up until about 9/11 in 2001. Okay. First, you start off on Monday with Information Day. This is one of the most important days of the whole week, as far as getting the material down and paying attention to what Mr. Gardner has to say throughout the whole hour of the class. Your next day, probably Tuesday, is Question Day. Now, a lot of people think this is the hardest part of Mr. Gardner's class. I thought it was pretty simple, but it can be challenging to make up a question for Mr. Gardner, especially with all the material that he covers. Wednesday, you have Time Machine Day, which is my favorite day of the week. You go back in time to when the period of information that you're learning is being covered. So my favorite time machine was the Society of the Cincinnatus, which is George Washington. And we would talk about our war stories in the Revolutionary War, which I thought was really cool. You sit around with root beer and stuff in a dark room with the candles. Your last day is Quiz Day, and how you choose to do this can make or break your whole year. My class did collaborative questions with mostly me answering them, but that's not important. But you can either do collaborative quizzes with your class, or you can do a quiz where you can look up answers and stuff. Whatever you do, just make sure you remember to give your graces to the Mr. Gardner. Hello, and welcome back. Those 4 days are very important, yes, but the most important grades of each semester, you have a semester project due. Your first semester project is you have to go in depth about your family tree. And I'm not talking about your grandfather, your grandma. I'm talking about all the way back to your great-great-grandparents. It's really cool because you get to learn where your heritage is from and cool things that they did. And you have to do tasks on your certain people in your family tree. Mr. Gardner will give you a task, and you have to go back and find which person achieved that significant feat. Your second semester project is much more time-consuming. You have to create a 10 to 20-minute video on a topic that you choose that what you've covered in U.S. history. I chose to do John D. Rockefeller, but it's completely up to you. One of my friends actually did the Civil War, and a couple others did the World War II, and they did 3 people in a group, and they had to do 30 minutes. I would not recommend doing that. Just do it solo, get it done, and don't procrastinate like my friend Giselle. He was 3 weeks late on his project. And he is a terrible role model for anyone watching this, and he should not be your role model as far as what to do in a class. And I appreciate the time, and I hope you have a great time at Mr. Gardner's U.S. History class. All right, I'm done.